This project is going to use Next-14 app routing and the Next-Auth package combined with AWS CDK and Cognito service to create a very simple authentication app. And finally, we're going to deploy this app to Amplify hosting through CDK as well. This video is recorded on December the 3rd, 2023, and the many packages we're using inside this project is still under construction. So if your deployment time is quite far away from this moment, please double check the most updated package. Early this year, React releases version 18. And following up on May the 4th, 2023, Next Group releases stable app router at 13.3 version. And in October, it released the Next-14, and recently on November the 17th, AWS Amplify hosting start to support the Next-14 and Node.js 18+. Before we start, we'd like to talk about the app routing in AWS CDK. Let's have a little bit review about the client-side rendering method at the very beginning. The React strategy is to put everything in the JS bundle and host all that kind of fake components in that root div level. And if you might have the method written on the client side to call the other server API and to fetch the data. And at that time, Next framework provides us a very clever method to do the server-side render. It's called a get server-side props function. This function works like a mid layer, so you can define all the calling API security-related function within the get server-side props. And because it's only run on the server side, the client side only need to care about the props that get server-side props returned. But now with React 18, it released the Next server components. Next said, you don't need to use the get server-side props anymore. We make sure everything defined in this server components will only run on the server side. So now you define all your API calling, data fetching, security-related vulnerable functions inside the server-side prop, the components. And on the client side, which is basically your browser, you will receive a pre-rendered fetched data HTML, CSS. And the only thing left for you to do is to download the rest of the JS bundle and focusing on the client-side hydration and re-rendering. And also, we're going to use AWS CDK to build most of our AWS service infrastructures. And AWS CDK following an idea called Infrastructures as Code, or IAC. And IAC is focusing on improving the maintainability of the service. In the past, imagine that we're going to start an AWS service, we're going to log into the console, click inside one of the services you're going to build, and click inside the subsection and submenu, click inside the submenu of the submenu. And it's quite painful as well to redo the build process again while you're debugging. And the CDK now connected to CloudFormation and support you to use other languages like JS or Java to define your infrastructure through code and generate the CloudFormation automatically. And every time when you modify a nested value within one of the service, you can just modify the CDK code and redeploy it. AWS will automatically compare the CloudFormation information and change that value for you. The first thing you need to make sure that is you got the CDK package downloaded, and also you need to make sure you have a method to connect to AWS command line tool. And we're going to make a directory for our CDK project. Let's say we can call it AWS CDK. We'll go inside that directory, and we're going to use the command CDK initiate application, and we're going to use the language as Java. And you can say in Java, we will use Maven as package management tools. Of course, you can use Gradle as well. To be honest, this is actually my personal choice. I just personally don't like to write JSON inside the definition function. You can also use other language like JS. And to be honest, if you might get more docs and more supported through JS because CDK's native language is JS. Here inside the dependencies, we can see, we firstly added to the Git, and we will modify it to modify the pom.xml file to add a new dependencies called Amplify Alpha. This function will help us to do the Amplify hosting. And after that, we'll update the Maven package. Then we come back to the main root. We're going to use npx to create a next project as well. We use npx create next app, and we're going to create the latest npx version. Let's say our project name to be, we can say next auth, authenticate, well, let's say demo auth. And we're going to use a TypeScript. We're going to use S-line. We're not going to use CSS. We're going to use source directory, and we'll also use the app router, which is our main topic. And we will import the alias. Then we just wait for the next to create the project structure for us. Okay, and let's go inside that package, that repo, which is repo demo auth. Yes. And we need two packages for next project. The first package is called Next-Auth, which will manage the session for us, and we will also use its credential providers to connect to our Cognito. And a second thing we're going to use is it's called Amazon Cognito Identity. Yes, this package is what we call the AWS SDK package. Will help us to use and connect it to Cognito inside our frontend functions. And let's quickly go through the package structure. Okay, we're going to add it to the Git file as well. And from the source folder, you can say all of the routing and the new next 14 version is through the app directory. The package in the past, the page routing, you will add the page and the index file within the page folder. But now the app router will fork the page at the main page entrance. So if we build, for example, if we build a routing group called auth, and if we build two page, one page called login, and another page called register, and if we create a file called page, and then register file will create the same thing. It's called page.tsx. The app router will route through app login, and the page is what it meant to be the login page. And now let's start to create the login and register page. We're going to submit the username and the password to the Cognito through the server-side functions, and we're going to define those forms in our login and register page. And let's start to define them. And let's create the login page first. For this page, let's say we're going to use two state, one to preserve the username value. We can call it username, and the function provided through the hook is set username function. And we're going to use the useState hook from React, and we initiate the value to be empty string. And the second state we're going to preserve is the password. And the method, of course, set password. And same state initiate to be empty string. And then we're going to write our form. Well, here in the recommended, the newest method that Next provided is called server action. And the official recommended method to write the form is use form state hook. But however, today we're not going to use that in this project. We'll just simply write a form, a client-side form, and then use the useState hook to preserve the value. Let's start to do it. We write the form. And the form we're going to use is to handle the submit. We can define a function. It's called handle submit function. And that function we're going to call the method to connect to Cognito online. So it might be a asynchronized function. But now we just simply log the value to the console. Let's double check the username value. We'll just let it to show the username value we input and password as well. So on submit, we're going to use the handle submit method. And the first level is to be username. And the first input, the type, let's say the username type should be text. And on change, we will preserve the event value of this events to set this value to our state. Use set username and event target value. The second level as well, we're going to define a password, value input, the same thing. The type is password, and the onChange handler will be the event, will be the state set password function, and we will set the event target value to be the state. And also of this form, we're going to define a button to submit the form to the function, and this button, the type should be submit. And here you might notice a problem that an error reported on the very top of it said use state is not allowed in server components. And why this happened? Because the page itself, if you do not really define the components as client components, all the default components is considered to be server components. So what should we do to use state and use effect hooks within the server components is we define the whole page to be client component and use client on top of it. But however, this will convert the whole page to be a client component, which is the opposite to the idea of using server component itself. And what should we do to solve this problem? React and Next provide us a very simple solution. We just need to define the corresponding scoop to the area that is supposed to use a client component. For example, in this page, the only thing that uses client form and it uses state is the form itself. So how about we just extracted this form as a client component? We'll say client login form. And we will move all of that forms, the state, the handle submit functions, and also the form itself to be the client component. And we only need to define this login form to use client. And the page itself, we don't need to use client component. And on the server side, we just need to import that client login form. And the idea is, no matter how many times this client login form re-render through hooked onto the state, the server itself, the whole page itself is only rendered once on the server side and sent to the client side through HTML, CSS. So the register page is the same thing. We define a client side. We can call it register form. And we will import that client-side form into our server components. Just simply import it. It's the same idea. No matter how many times the register form updates, it just updates by itself. It's just re-rendered by itself inside the server components. And we only need to define this component as client component, and the page does not influenced by the definition itself. It's still a server component. And let's start to run the dev, run npm run dev. Sorry. Oh, we're not inside the root folder. This is always a mistake. We're going to come into the demo folder, and then we run npm run dev. We'll double check the localhost. We'll say this is our index page. I'm going to say our login page, and according to our handle submission function, if we submit anything to test, and it will just submit the password and the username to the function we define. Now here we need to adjust a little bit. We need to say this button should be login button. Here we go, login button, and we test again. Yeah, it just reported and refresh the whole page. And our next target is supposed to write the Next-Auth package. But Next-Auth package credential provider will need us to provide the Cognito related information and run it in the environment as environment value. So before that, we need to start to deploy our Cognito service first. So let's come into the AWS CDK package. And for the main package, we can say there are two classes defined. The first class is called app, and the second class is called stack. In app, we will normally register our stack into the app that will run through the CDK session. And the stack itself is what we mainly focus on to define all our stacks through the CloudFormation. So let's now start to define the Cognito and hosting stack. But I'm going to change this stack to be, let's see, Cognito hosting stack. Why I name it to be Cognito hosting, because we will define the Cognito user pool and the hosting on Amplify process within one stack. So let's delete the example and start to create the stack itself. You can say in this constructor, we normally have a two constructor. First is default constructor, and second constructor will provide the scoop and ID as the default value. So most of the Java definition, the builders we will need to provide this two information to the creator itself. So for the user pool itself, we'll define a user pool. Let's call it user pool. As a user pool, we will go through the builder to create and build this user pool. As I described previously, the create, we need to provide a scoop and also the ID. Let's say we're going to say demo user pool. And for the user pool value, we're going to use user pool name as, let's see, is demo user pool as well. Oh, here, it's not JavaScript anymore. I'm going to use double. We're going to use that demo user pool. And for the removal policy, we're going to define as destroy. So in this case, once you destroy these stacks, all the related packages or frameworks will automatically destroy by itself. And for our sign-in alias, we will create our sign-in by email as verification. And then we're going to enable the self sign-in as true. If you're not enable it, the only way that the user registered in your user pool is by you, and you log into the console and you create a new user through the console. So here we allow the user itself to register it through the third-party position, and we're going to verify the user through the auto verification by email itself too. And for user pool, we can actually customize our user email. Let's say verification, we're going to use the user verification config builder. And for the email subject itself, we're going to say, this is the please verify your demo email. And for the email body itself, for the email body, we're going to define as, let's see, this is a content. You can actually insert HTML inside, but let's say, thanks for registration. Your code is 4-digit. And of course, the email verification style is supposed to be verified to be code. And we need to define our standard attributes. The standard attributes contains, let's say, we need, of course, firstly, email. The email setting supposed to be required because this is our identification ID, and immutable is true as well. And we can also let the user provide its family name too. Let's say family name is required as well, but we don't need it to be mutable. You can see we can also define our custom attributes. Let's try one. Let's define one custom attribute, and custom attribute supposed to be a kind of a map formation. We can say created at, and we're going to provide the date time attribute. Yeah. And shortly we'll see how to fetch this custom attribute through the Next-Auth package as well. And now we define our user pool. And how to connect to user pool, we need to define our user pool client as well. So user pool client, user pool, we need to add a client. It's same thing, ID, let's say demo user pool client. And the user pool client options we're going to build include first thing, user pool client name. Let's say demo, the same thing, demo user pool client. And we'll just let it not generate the secret because we're going to use Next-Auth package, and we're going to use the credential providers. So here we're not going to generate a secret, and we're going to define our authentication flows as say the user cert to be true. Yes, that's the way to use the credential provider. And we're going to let the user provide the password. And now after we define the client, we're also going to give it a domain as well. Let's see, add the domain. We can say the domain to be YYX, or just the example, YYX demo domain. Let's see. And we will say user domain builder. We will add the domain prefix to be a Cognito domain, yes. Cognito domain prefix to be builder. Let's see, prefix YYX demo domain. Okay. And here's all the definition. But before that, we're also going to use the Cognito ID itself, and the Cognito client ID to connect to our client side. We will put this two value into our environment variables. So we need to get the output of it. We're going to save an output. We're going to build. We're going to create this, and the value, the ID, let's see, it's to be Cognito ID is the value of the user pool. We have a method that get Cognito pool ID, and we build it. And the second one we're going to do is this. We're going to assign the Cognito client ID. And the client, we can get the Cognito client ID as well. Build it. And of course, if you are using, if you want to use the Cognito provider provided by the Next-Auth, it will lead to the Cognito host UI for you. But in this project, we're going to use our custom login page and register page. So we don't need to set that issue URL. And here is everything. And let's double check. We go into our terminal, and we come into our AWS CDK folder. And we're going to do the first command is called synth. The CDK synth will allow us to automatically create a CloudFormation. Here you can see the CloudFormation already updates. And also before we deploy, we need to double check. We have already logged into the AWS command line tool. I'm going to use SSO method to log in. So let's firstly log in. We'll jump to the login request. I'm going to say allow it. Okay, let's come back to the command line tool, and we'll do CDK synth again. And we're going to do CDK deploy. Yeah, you can see now we automatically deploy it to the AWS console as the name is called Cognito Hosting Stack. And we expose our Cognito ID and Cognito client ID out, and we can just simply add it to the environment console in our front environment value to the front end. So let's see, we create an environment local, and we're not going to add that to the Git value. We're going to delete it from the Git. We're going to add it as Git ignore. And for that value, we're going to say Cognito ID is the Cognito ID. And Cognito client ID is the Cognito client ID. Yes. Now, if you log into your AWS console and we go to your Cognito, you will see the demo user pool that we have just deployed. And if you come to your CloudFormation, you will also see the most recent Cognito hosting stack we have created. But here we got something like an error. For example, you go into your Cognito user pool, and if you delete your demo user pool manually, now you can see it's already been deleted. And you come back to your stack. Let's change something. For example, let's just change the subject to be add a letter, and then we're going to be CDK synth, and we deploy it again. And you will say CDK just detected the difference between the previous version and the current version of the CloudFormation. So it will just create the CloudFormation change set. And while it's going to update in progress, it will report the error said update failed because the user pool does not exist anymore. And then no matter how you create in the future, this Cognito hosting stack will come to the condition called rollback. In this case, you should go to the CloudFormation and delete the stack manually by yourself that related to this CDK stack. And now, if you come back to your CDK and do the synth and deploy again, it will successfully deploy it again. And you come back to the Cognito user, it will say the user pool is connected to the stacks itself again. And now we successfully deploy the Cognito service online. It's time for us to come back to the front end and try to connect the Next-Auth package to the Cognito service. Before we use Next-Auth package, there are two essential values for us to provide to Next-Auth. The first value is called Next-Auth URL. This environment variables is helpful for you Next-Auth to callback. And actually, after deployment, you need to provide an extra URL to the Next-Auth. But here we're going to test it locally, so we just provide the localhost value. It should be 3000. And next value we're going to provide to Next-Auth is called secret. This secret is helpful to generate the GWT token and maintain this token in the session. We can easily generate through the OpenSSL. We just give the random number and supposed to be base 64. And we just glue this value to the environment variables. Okay. And the next step we're going to do is to create an API. As usual, API route, and we will provide the Next-Auth with its own route, Next-Auth. And now in the app routing method, we're going to provide a route. In this route, we're going to define the handler. The handler is provided by Next-Auth itself. So we're going to provide options shortly. So we're going to define the option in another folder. So we're going to set a reminder, say provide options shortly. But before that, let's export the handler as get and post. Export handler as get, handler as post. And I don't think we need this const. Yes. And according to the recommendations, now we are all server-side rendering. And for the server components, you can't really use session hooks on the client side. Of course, if you design it as a user client component, you still need to provide the session to the client component. But Next-Auth package actually provide us a server-side method called get server session. So we're going to define that in a util function. It's called get session. And we're going to export that to export. Oh, sorry. Change it to be yes. Okay. We're going to export that function as get session and return the value that the Next-Auth package provided to us. It's called a get server session. this get server session required arguments. And the arguments firstly succeeded from the previous functions, and we have several options. The first option is called get server-side props context provided by Next itself. First one is request, and next one is also response. And it can be the option as next API request or next API response. Or it can be undefined as well because it's text scripts. And we can just provide these arguments to the server session, the arguments itself. And we also require us to provide the auth options. And we're just going to define these options for us. So we're going to export these options as well, auth options, and it should be the next auth option. And we're going to provide the providers. Not from this one, but it's actually a provider provided by Next-Auth. We're going to import the credential provider. Credential provider from the Next-Auth providers credential provider. And credential provider. And now we're going to define our credential providers. And Next-Auth package provides us a lot of options to define, to rewrite. For example, we're going to connect to AWS Cognito, and AWS provide the SDK for us to use to create the Cognito users here. So we will go into rewrite its authorized functions and provide our own authorized functions through the AWS SDK. And we're going to provide the credentials. And it should be a string record. And because it's a promise, we're going to return new promise as going to define shortly to reject and resolve the function as well. But before that, we're going to define our credentials first. So firstly, we're going to define the credential. And our credential is just simply username. Username is label is username. And the value is supposed to be text. Type is text. And the next one, we're going to use the password as the password credential. Same thing, label as password and type is password. Now, after we define our credentials, we can, before we return the promise function, we will check if the credential existed, defined, or if credential username is defined, or if credential password is defined. And if nothing's defined, we're going to throw the errors, new error. We say username and password are not defined correctly. And after all of that check, we can start to use user pool. And this user pool is actually provided by the Amazon Cognito identification.js. So we're going to create user pool as the type of Cognito user pool as await create user pool. And this create user pool function, we're going to import through our Cognito user pool. So here, let's create the user pool function as well. Cognito user pool. And for this user pool, we're going to run on the server side. So we fully run on use server. And we will get to the user pool ID first from the outside. It should be process, environment, and going to be Cognito ID. Here is supposed to be equal. And next one is supposed to be client ID we provided. And its process environment is called Cognito client ID. As we just mentioned here, yes, Cognito client ID. And we're going to double check if user pool ID is not defined. I'm sorry. If user pool ID is not defined, or if client ID is not defined, we're going to throw the errors as well. It's called Cognito environment is not defined. Well, it's a quite good habit to always throw the error because you can, it's less painful through the debugging, especially once you deploy to the Amplify hosting, you will double check the everything is correct before you deploy. And now let's define the pool data. The user pool data contains the user pool ID, as we mentioned, user pool ID, and also the client ID as, and use client ID as the client ID. And we define our function as create user pool function. We just want to create, and we will return a new Cognito user pool. And this Cognito user pool is going to import through the Cognito user pool, import Cognito user pool from Amazon Cognito Identity.js. We're going to provide the pool data to our user pool. And here we're going to export our user pool as well for later usage. Export default, create user pool. And now let's come back to the get session. We can create our user pool through create user pool function. And we already provide the enough value, so we don't need to put any props here. And after we create the user pool, we're going to create a Cognito user, just as what we do through the console. So Cognito user as a value of username. Username is our credential username. And the password, well, sorry, the pool is our user pool just created by the Cognito user pool function. And we're going to create our authentication details. Sorry, authentication details. I'm going to create authentication details through the authentication details function provided by Amazon SDK as well. And the first thing, username is going to be credential username, and password is going to be the credentials password. And now we return the promise function. We're going to throw the SDK. We're going to firstly connect to user and authenticate the user. The user we're going to provide it through the authentication details and give the callback function on success or on failure. In all the result we resolve, sorry. On success, we give the result to be firstly we can log it into the console. Let's see, Cognito login success. And it will give the result. And we can also create a payload. And we just say result dot get token ID, yes, ID token, and get the payload out. We can use it shortly as well. I'm going to resolve it. Resolve the value to be ID is the credential username. And email to be the credential username too, because we're going to use email as an ID. But ID, you must return it. You must resolve it. And with the Amphilia, we're going to report the error. The error, we can firstly, same thing for easier debugging. We're going to log it into the console. Login field. We say it's the error. Why not detected the errors itself? Error? Amphilia, I'm sorry. Error? Yes. And if error code is, we got the specific code from the documentation's code, user not confirmed exception. We're going to throw the result function. It's called ID is the credential username. But the email will say it's not verified. And Amphilia will reject it. Reject as a new error, going to be the error message. And or we can just create a simple message called Cognito email authentication field. And here we might provide our solutions. Because we're going to use our custom page, we're going to define the page as well. The sign-in page is supposed to be sign in is our login page. It's pages. Okay, now we define our options, and we're going to provide our options to the next API, which is to say, next auth options is auth options. Now we can delete our to-do. And now I think it's time for us to come back to the login page and check our function defined. Here on Hamlet submit, we're going to use our own defined function. So it's return a promise. We're going to do a try catch blog. And for now, we just print out the error first. Console log error. And for try, Next-Auth provide us a function to sign in, and through the definition we just provide in the auth options. So we're going to do that. We create a result. That result returned by sign functions provided by Next-Auth. And we're going to use credential method. And the option signing option, we're going to provide the username, provide the password, and provide a callback URL. How about we just currently redirect back to the index page? The index page, let's say here, instead of, we can delete all the auto-generated content by next.js, but we're going to print out to fetch the session first. Let's see, session. We get the session from the functions we just defined from our utils rather than get auth package. Yes. And then if we check the session, if session is not defined, we're going to redirect, let the user redirect to the index page. And then we're going to return this login user information. Let's currently just return the session itself. Say JSON string file, we're going to print out session. Session might include a user, and a user contains our email and created that information, for example. And I think now we can start to run npm, say npm run dev. Oh, we're not in the folder. We need to move to the root demo auth. Let's say npm run dev. let's check. Here we got an error. It said, did you mean user server? The error is occurred in our util user pool. Let's come back to the user pool first. User pool. Use server rather than user server. Okay. And now, okay, let's come back to the login function. Let's type something. Why it always refresh? Okay, here we got another problem. We do not really want the submit form to refresh the page. Okay, here we will fetch the events value out. It's called form events. And we'll give it as HTML form event. And we don't want the default refreshing method. Now let's come back to say, double check. We got a new error. This action with HTTP GET is not supported. It's supposed to be an API fault. Let's come to the API definition. We export the handler as GET function. Oh, here, the API, we need to define the auth. According to the next documentation, we need to put the next auth inside the auth route. So we put it inside, delete the original one. And let's now test, refresh the login. Okay. We try to log in something and we got an error because we have no user at the moment. And let's come back to the server side. You can say now we got the code as user not found exception because currently we don't have any user in our user pool. So now let's start to write our registration method and registration page to register a new user and test again. Okay, let's come back to the register page. It's the same thing. We're going to create a form and try to prevent the default event as well. But instead using sign in method provided by NextAuth. NextAuth does not provide us any registration function. So we're going to write our own Cognito registry function. So here, let's see, Cognito register. We're going to export an asynchronous function, and this function is called Cognito register. And we're going to put the username, the password, and also the family name. I think we define the family name as attributes in our CDK definition. Yes, family name as attribute, family name, and we define the interface for it. Interface Cognito register props. First thing's username is a string, and the password is also string, and the family name is also string. Okay, we provide these props to our method. And then because this one is a synchronized function, we're going to connect to SDK through the SDK package. We're going to return a new promise function and going to asynchronously resolve or reject the readout. Okay. So in this promise function, we're going to connect to Cognito through CDK as well. So we firstly create our user pool as usual. The same thing, we create the user pool through our own defined user pool function here, Cognito user pool. The function name is called create user pool. Create user pool. And we're going to use this user pool to sign up a user. Sign up a user, we have a username provided username, password. We'll provide a username as username, password, and user attributes. We're going to define a user attribute list. Let's see, define attribute list. And this one is new Cognito user, new Cognito user attributes. say, oh, it's actually should be a list of Cognito new, Cognito user attribute. We're going to provide the name is first thing, email. I think we define the two attribute here in our CDK definition. First thing is email, second thing is family name. Of course, you can provide your custom attribute to the user pool as well, but we're not going to do it today. Name, we're going to just provide the email and family name. So value is email. Email, it's our username. So we just provide the username. And the next one, we're going to provide the name as password. No, sorry, family name. The value should be the family name we provide. And we're going to give this attribute to the sign up function. And validation data, we don't have any validation data. We don't need to do that. And a callback, okay, we define our callback function here. For the callback function, if error, same thing, we're going to print out the error. Error, which say Cognito, register error, print out the error. And we reject it out. Reject, we're going to create a new error, same thing, new error, say Cognito error message. Or we're going to define our own error as just a string, Cognito register field. Or if we register successfully, we're going to print out the result as well. We say the result, Cognito registration without. And we're going to create our response. And I'm going to give the response to the front end so we can use in the session and the Next-Auth. So we create the response. User confirmed. Confirmed is, do we have user confirmed in the result? I think without we need to use user confirmed. I'm sorry. Without user confirmed. Yeah, we need to give the value user confirm. The next thing is user sub. We have user sub. Okay. And we're going to resolve it. Resolve the response. Here, if you have your own data, own database, you want to keep another user database for management, for user management, for example, you put other extra attributes through the user ID and then create another parallel database, you can insert your database code here. But we're not going to do that. We just use Cognito own database is fine. So now let's come back to the register form. Instead of using sign-in function, we're going to use our own function instead. See, the result is our own defined Cognito register, and we're going to provide the username, password, family name. Let's say the create then data, register data is equals to username. Username is username. Password is password. We're going to have another state called family name and set family name. I'm going to paste this label again. We have another input called family name. The type is text. The event is set the family name to be the target value. And then we give this family name to the register data family name. And we give it to register data. and we can print out the result. Console log the result. And let's start to test it. So now it's still running, automatically refreshing. We come back to the main page. Let's check the register. Let's say I'm going to give a username hhh at hhh.com, let's say, and say password. We need to give a password and family name, which say YYX. And oh, we don't have a button yet, so let's give it a button. It's called register. Okay, let's register. Let's see what the error occurred. The error occurred said only plain objects and few built-ins can be passed to client components from server components. Okay, that seems like we pass our register components from a client component. I think the error has actually occurred here in our function definition. We didn't mark it as use server. And now let's test again, register. And schema family attributes, family name. Okay, here for the family name, we need to give the value as family name. Here you need to double check. You can say does not really confirm. The attribute family name is required. Actually give you the family name options. You need to say as family name. For those kind of values, you need to double check the doc sometimes. And let's try it again. Register. Okay, we successfully registered the new user. Let's come into our user pool, reload, and log into Cognito. And we can say we already create the user, and our user family name is YYX, the email is yyhhh.com, not verified, of course. And we have a user sub. Let's confirm it, and then let's try to log in through our app again to test the login through our new user created by our register. We type hhh at hhh.com. We provide our password. Login. It seems like we successfully logged in, but why the session is not deployed? It's not displayed on the page. Let's come back to the page itself. Say we get the session and we double check the session, if session, and we print the session out. Oh, here it's a promise function. We need to use await, and we need to change the function as an synchronized function as well. And now, yes, you can say the email has been verified, and we display the email in our index page. So now we successfully test all the authentication process locally. And I think it's time to come back to the AWS CDK stack, and let's continue to write the Amplify hosting. We were going to host our front-end code to Amplify hosting through CDK. So firstly, in CDK, we're going to build an application, and this application is imported through Amplify Alpha package. We'll call it Amplify App, and we're going to use the creator and build. For the creator itself, we're going to provide the scoop. And the ID, we can call it demo, Amplify hosting. And our app name is also demo, Amplify hosting. And for the source code provider, you have a lot of source code providers you can use online or offline. And normally we use GitHub. So in this project, we're going to use GitHub as our repo provider. So we're going to say GitHub source code provider. And we're going to use to create the source code provider. We initiate the owner. The owner is your owner ID. So now let's log into our GitHub. And your owner ID is your ID here. It's my ID. Put it in. And your repo name. In this repo, we're going to use the repo called demo Next-Auth Authentication App application. So we copy that demo name, copy that repo name, provided for us. And we'll also need to provide Amplify hosting the token that it can get access to the GitHub repo. And this time you can, well, of course, you can provide the secret value by string, but we're not going to do it. We're going to generate a secret value for Amplify to use. Here, log into your GitHub and go into settings. Under setting, there's a developer settings. And under developer setting, you're going to generate a personal access token, and we're going to use token classic. We click the generate new token and generate classic. All right. We can give it a name. We can call it demo Amplify hosting key. And the only thing we need to give it is the repo hook. You need to give it admin repo hook. And everything out default, generate the token, and we copy this token value. So here we come to our console, go to AWS console. We're going to visit the secret manager, and we're going to generate a new secret manager, store a new secret value, and we can use other type of secret, and we're going to use plain text, and we're going to glue our generated secret for it. And next, secret name, we can provide a description. Let's say secret name is demo Amplify hosting. And everything as default, everything set as default. Next, everything default, and we store that value. So now you can see we got demo Amplify hosting value. For this value, we need that secret ID, which is secret name. We copy that secret name, and we're going to provide that secret through the secret provider, secret value, secret manager, and we're going to provide that secret ID to the secret manager. And next, we're going to continue to build the framework of the Amplify hosting. The auto deletion, we're going to delete true. And the platform, we're going to use, here is quite critical. Amplify hosting provide you two options. The first option is platform web, which is default option, because you're going to create a serverless static web. But now we're going to use server-side render, so we must set this value to be web compute. Say set to be web compute if server-side render. And for the build spec, I'm going to glue the template provided by the AWS. And here we got some tricky things. I replaced all the map into linked hash map. And why I do that? Because if you use linked hash map, you will preserve the order of your YAML file. This is very critical because here, for example, and the phrases, you must make sure the pre-build command is finished before your build command. But if you use map, if you use Java as well, the map won't preserve the order of the item being put in. So you might finally get YAML build setting as the build command do before the pre-build command. This is not really what we want. So to make sure the order is correct, we will do the linked hash map. And also here, we got another value called applications, because we're going to do a monorepo application. Again, the monorepo definition is our repo is not actually the source code repo, the source code folder. The actual folder is the subfolder of our repo. So we're going to give it an app root, which is under our repo name, the demo Next-Auth Cognito+Amplify CDK, which is our repo name. But we're also going to provide it a front-end root, which is our demo auth. And the build path is also demo auth. And we're going to define the phrase. Amplify, AWS has already defined it for us. We got the pre-build command. We do the npm install all the packages, and we will do the build command to build all the packages. And next, we're going to give the Amplify app a custom rule. Let's say we add the custom rule to be custom rule. I want to build it through the builder. Okay. And we're going to create a source, which is basically just our source folder, source root. And we're going to get a target, which is basically our index. I'm going to give our state, a redirect. We're going to do not if not found right. Okay. And the next thing, of course, was going to add our front-end local environment value to the Amplify hosting running environment. So look at the environment value we provide. We provide 4 values: Cognito ID, client ID, Next-Auth, and Next-Auth secret. But here we're not going to provide. You can say you got options here. If we say Amplify app, we say add environment. This environment will add to the Amplify hosting environment settings. If you click into the Amplify hosting website console, let's say come to AWS and to the Amplify hosting. Here you might find a build setting, and here is our build setting. You might find the environment variables are defined here. This is the environment variables you're going to provide through the add environment. But instead, because again, our app router is running on the server side, the environment provided to the app itself should also be added into the production environment as well. So where we're going to add those 4 values to our production, we're going to add it through the build command. So while it's build our server deployment, it just build the environment value into the production environment. So let's start to do it. We provide the first value we're going to do is echo, say Next-Auth secret. We copy our environment value into the secret value. Don't forget the equal mark. And we're going to provide that into our production environment. And similar things, we're going to provide our next URL, which is currently our host URL. For the host URL, you can easily get through your host domain, but we're going to provide it shortly because for this one, we're going to have two branch. The first branch is dev branch. The second branch is main branch. You will say we're currently under dev branch. So for 2 branch, the Next-Auth URL is different. We're going to do it shortly. And for Cognito ID, we're going to provide a Cognito ID. I copy the value here to the Cognito ID value. The same thing, insert into the production environment variables. And Cognito client ID is, as a Cognito client ID. And here, to provide different Next-Auth URL to different branch, we're going to use the if statement. So firstly, we're going to write a block. If, let's say, for the environment value, we're going to fetch which branch we are currently in. So if the branch AWS branch is equals to main, then we're going to add the production URL as to the environment as, say, HTTPS main dot, fetch the current host URL, AWS app ID, and amplifyapp.com. And if the current AWS branch is dev, then we're going to set this value to be the dev. And we finish our code block. Okay, but here we also need to add the Cognito ID and the Cognito client ID to our environment. So we start to do it because all of the functions we provide, some of the functions are built at the build time. And Cognito ID and Cognito client ID, in my memory, I think we call it at the client side from our definition here, the utils user pool. Here we provide the two environment to our server side functions. So we must provide it to the AWS environment as well. So here we add the two environment. The first environment is called Cognito ID. Cognito ID, the value is the user pool. We can get the user pool ID. And the second one, we add the environment as Cognito client ID. Just copy that client ID, and we can simply just get our user pool command. To be honest, here we can just simply get it. No, yeah, we can just simply by app add is equals to plus user pool get user pool ID, and here the same thing to user pool and get client and get user pool client ID. Okay. And also, we also want to provide a very important setting as custom. It's called custom image setting. The custom image should be the value of Amplify ALL 2023. At this moment, if you only give the Amplify ALL 2023 to the custom image, then the Amplify will use the newest environment to support your Node.js 18 and your Next.js 14. And we're also going to add the live updates. And we provide the value that Amplify gave by default. Okay. And then we're going to build the branch. We're going to build two branches. The first branch called main. And we're going to add a branch. It's called main. And the branch builder, the stage is, say, production. Another branch we're going to give is dev, development. Give a branch name called dev. And branch options as the stage is development. Sorry. And we also need to set the performance setting. Performance mode is true. And now let's start to deploy the stack. We're going into the AWS CDK. And then we do CDK sense. And we do CDK deploy. Let's see if we can deploy successfully. Okay, we allow this change. Okay, now we successfully deployed it to Amplify hosting. And now let's start to check our Amplify hosting. We can see under the APPs, we already deploy the demo Amplify hosting, and we click the inside. you will find all the environment variables we have defined. You will find the build settings as we define by preserve the orders. And you will also find that because we add the environment variables, the build image will automatically change to be the 2023 image, and the next version will support to be the latest. And now let's go to the dev. We're going to deploy this version and to say what is happening. So firstly, redeploy. While to build the version, Amplify will firstly install the environment, which is called a provision. It will create a container and run and help you to initiate a Docker image on the something like EC2 or other instance. And after provision, we're going to build. Firstly, Amplify will try to clone the repo from the provider, the code provider you're going to provide it. So here we provide the GitHub repo, so it starts to clone through our GitHub repo. And after clone the GitHub repo, it will start to try to build the backend. And I don't think we have any backend try to host on Amplify, so they just start to ignore the backend. And after backend build, we're going to say are mainly focusing on the build of the front end. It will say the command will firstly do the npm install to install all the packages required and start to build the app. But here we will get an error. The error will cause the field of the build of the front end. We check the log of the server build information that said custom error occurred, field to find the deploy manifest.json. It seems like this error occurred because the Amplify hosting does not really find the actual build files. This is quite strange because we have already successfully built everything and supposed to be Amplify is supposed to find that build repo already. But finally, it still tried to find that build repo and didn't find as we set as .next repo, .next folder. So this is quite a tricky thing. We come back to our setting. We say we already set the app root to be our monorepo subfolder, and we already set the build path to be our monorepo build folder subfolder. And then now the only thing we are missing is a very critical environment variable. We need to add another environment variable provided by Amplify documentation. Is called Amplify monorepo app root. And this variable must have the same value as our front-end repo name, which now in this project is called demo.auth. Demo.auth. And after we provide this environment to AWS Amplify, I hope that might successfully achieve the build and deploy. Let's start to do it. Try it again and CDK synth and CDK deploy. You can see the second deploy time is shorter than the first time because we only changed one value. Okay, and now we come back to our Amplify application and we try to redeploy this version again. And now you can see the environment successfully completed and the build is complete and start going to the deploy section. And now we have just successfully deployed. And now if you click into the domain that Amplify host, we can check that host information, oh, it's automatically logging in because I have cookie already. But if you put a login and then we test it through, we have our HHH at hhh.com. And we got our password and we log in and we can see we're successfully logged in. And what if we register a new user? Let's try to register a new user. Now our username will be called ooo@ooo.com. We provide the password and family name, and we do the register. And after successfully register, we're going to log in again. ooo.com, password, and login. Because we haven't verified it, give this user a confirm. And after that, you log in again to say ooo.com and provide the password. And now you can see the email is verified. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment below.